שלום הרב לייטמן. שלום לכולם. שלום לצופים בבית, אנחנו בתוכניתנו צעדים ראשונים בקבלה.
Hello, Rav Leitman, viewers at home. First steps in the wisdom of Kabbalah. Today we will speak about one of the most fascinating subjects in terms of the attraction of the wisdom of Kabbalah. It's always attributed to the wisdom of Kabbalah and identified with it. It's a subject of reincarnation. So first of all, you know, there's a lot of folklore, a lot of tales about this issue. Before coming to the wisdom of Kabbalah, I heard many stories. For example, the Druze people, as a child, they would tell what kind of relationships they had with their woman, where they were in previous life. So they're happy, everyone's happy. They say, oh, this old man who died was reincarnated as this child here. It's kind of mysticism with many halos around it, so to speak. And almost every religion uses it as a kind of leverage for possible punishment or reward. So how does the wisdom of Kabbalah explain reincarnation? Leitman, if there are souls, then they reincarnate. I don't know what they mean by souls. Gilad, well, I think they mean it simply. We live with a body, and what's outside of that body or within it is the soul. Those Jewish people, I don't think they refer to the soul as we do. They think of it as we do. Right? The body dies, we see a corpse, and what's not in it anymore is probably the soul. Leitman, what do you mean, not in it? Gilad, one's life, his ability to recognize himself, to speak, to think. Leitman, where he had the force of life, vitality, and now it vanishes, and that life force is called the soul. Gilad, I think that's how they think of it. Leitman, I don't think of it as they do. I don't care about what they think, really. Gilad, a person is composed of a body and a soul. That's what they think. It's very natural to think this way. I have a body, I feed it, I let it sleep, and so on. And beyond that, I have my thoughts, my emotions, everything that exists in me of that nature is probably the soul. And that thing is, I suppose, that is how the public perceive it. This thing which isn't my body later moves to a different body, and there I continue, although I may have forgotten what I had in previous life, although there's instances where they say it's not so, like when the Dalai Lama dies in Tibet, they test children, asking them questions that only the previous Dalai Lama would know, and then they know the answers to, and then they say, here's the new Dalai Lama, if he knows. So this is how people understand what reincarnation is. Leitman, okay, I don't have anything to say about that. I don't come from Tibet. This wasn't taught to me as a child, but the fact that the person has a natural tendency to think that he has a soul and that it reincarnates, that we see in every people, in every culture. That's true. Gilad, so why? Is it convenient for the will to receive, to believe that it is eternal? What is going on there? Leitman, first of all, I don't understand where the person, from where he derives this so-called fact that he has a soul. Gilad, he wasn't taught anything else. Leitman, so that's what he feels and thinks. So first of all, I have to know what the soul is, and if it's in me or not. And if it is, then what happens with that soul? What is reincarnation, the reincarnation of the soul? And into what body do these reincarnations come? I don't know what the Chinese think, or the Indians, or the indigenous people of North America. It doesn't matter to me. I can only say what the wisdom of Kabbalah says, and that is that if a person acquires the power of bestowal above his ego, which is inside of him, then that means that he has acquired a soul. In general, it's called a soul, but there's nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya, yechida, different degrees. There's many things going on there, but if a person receives the power of bestowal, then that power of bestowal in the person is called the soul, neshama in Hebrew, in general. And then when that person, he keeps correcting his will to receive such that it becomes, in order to bestow more and more, then we say that he is rising, climbing the spiritual ladder, and undergoes reincarnation of the souls, meaning that each time upper lights clothe in him, the Creator, you can say, clothes in him in a more and more profound way. It's increasing in magnitude. There are many books talking about reincarnation as a subject, but I'm speaking from the perspective of the wisdom of Kabbalah, not the Indians, not the anything. Gilad. And if one hasn't acquired that power of bestowal you talk about, Lightman, then he has no soul. Gilad. So what happens to him then in life? Lightman. Then he has only a point called spark from above, a part of God. Gilad. And if he doesn't acquire the soul, then what happens to him when he dies? Lightman. Nothing happens. He had that black dot in him, which he never developed. So he is removed from the feeling of this world, the beastly world, and he doesn't feel anything of that black point he didn't develop until he's born again as a baby, and then he becomes an adult, and he gets another opportunity to develop the root of his soul. Gilad. So who is he who is rid of the feeling of the corporeal body, the beastly body then? Lightman. That feeling which existed in the corporeal body, the beastly body, now loses the feeling of the beastly body. Gilad. And because it itself never developed, nothing happens to it, right? Lightman. Yes. Gilad. So it has no existence. What kind of existence is it? To be only a dot? Lightman. No existence. No feeling of self. Gilad. No feeling of self. That's nothing. That's empty. Emptiness. Completely empty. Lightman, because he didn't acquire the feeling above the beastly life. Also, the beastly life, that's also just a feeling. There's nothing else here. Gilad, but this feeling is sort of built into anyone who's born. He perceives things which he can share with others. If I talk with you about this glass, then we both perceive it as a glass, even though each one perceives it slightly differently. We learn this from the perspective on reality. So if you just sort of get rid of the feeling of this world, it leaves you, and then you remain empty, right? If you don't have the root of the soul. Lightman, simpler then. Gilad, simpler, yes, but much more, it obligates you. I mean, what we don't do here in this reincarnation, we can do in the next, right? Lightman, yes, have it so. Gilad, because it gives you some confidence, the knowledge that we don't end our lives here, but there is a continuation. It doesn't matter in what way. It gives you some calm, some confidence, security perhaps. All right, so if not now, then later. It'll be fine. Whatever needs to happen will happen. Lightman, it's certain that we continue, but the question is to what extent. Either it's just a point with some initial data, some initial elements, and we wait for them to become fully realized, or they already begin to develop. Gilad, okay, so here, I looked through the writings of Baal HaSulam for reference to reincarnation, and I found it 21 times mentioned in the writings of Baal HaSulam. He uses this term. I assume he uses it in order to describe what you're talking about, but you can understand from his writings, you can interpret it however you want. Lightman, let's hear. Gilad. So in the article called HaShalom, the peace, he explains the teaching of Rabbi Akiva about the shopkeeper and bills. So he says, the sages talked about the incarnation of generations in the world. They said that even if we see bodies being replaced from generation to generation, these are only bodies, but the souls, which are the mainstay of the body, they never change. They simply move from body to body through the generations. Lightman, yes. Gilad, so how can we understand this on a deeper level? Like we said, different to the Chinese philosophies and so on. What does it mean that the bodies are transient and the souls are eternal? Lightman, the body is called the will to receive. If it's above reception in order to bestow, then the upper light clothes in it, and according to equivalence of form, and so from generation to generation it continues reincarnating. We're not talking about generations in our world. We're talking about states of ascents and descents regarding all these desires. Gilad, so we're talking about a single person whose desires keep changing, but there's something there that's steady, it doesn't change. Lightman, yes. Gilad, so let's not talk about different bodies, different beings, right? All right, so that sorts things out. And he continues saying that there's much proof and there's great wisdom in the secret of the reincarnation of souls, and this is not the place to scrutinize it, right? So in this article, he doesn't clarify. So what is the secret? Lightman, it's a secret. What do you want me to say? Gilad, what does this secret speak of? Lightman, well, there's nothing to speak of. Gilad, he doesn't explain, but perhaps you can. Lightman, no, because this cannot be explained. You need to rise to faith above reason and there to begin to reincarnate. Gilad, so in the same excerpt, he continues and says that the person reincarnates on the wheel of differing forms and his essence remains unchanged. He compares it to the law of conservation of energy in physics. Lightman, yes. Gilad, so what we call the soul in us has its form changes. Lightman, of course, there are changes in its form. Each time the soul changes its essence according to the correction of its will to receive, it receives a correction on its will to receive, which is called the intention to bestow, and so it changes. Gilad, are there states like in physics? You take water, you warm it, it becomes steam, you cool it, it becomes ice. Are there different states, like physical states here? Lightman, yes, very clear-cut, very well-defined states. And we can determine their order and their magnitude. Gilad, how can we call these states? Are those the four discernments we talk about? Lightman, yes, through 125 degrees. Gilad, okay, I'll read more because he mentions it time after time in the well-known part in the introduction to the study of the 10 Sefirot, where he talks about the surrounding lights. He says that one who hasn't been awarded in this incarnation will be awarded in a different incarnation until he merits the fulfillment of the thought of God. What does he mean? Lightman, he means that the soul has to achieve a connection with the rest of the souls, and by that it has to come to equivalence with the upper force, with the Creator, but it needs to reach equivalence from the side of the vessel, and the Creator is the side of the light. Gilad, so how does this relate to the surrounding lights he mentions which developed the soul? Lightman, all the souls that existed outside of the soul, when it is corrected, they enter the soul, and instead of surrounding lights, they become inner lights. Gilad, so reincarnation means another dose of surrounding lights becoming inner lights. Lightman, yes. Gilad, all right, another article, Body and Soul, he speaks about, from my flesh I shall witness the divine, from the writings of Baal HaSulam. He says that each body, every body is short of spirit and is full of anger because his incarnation is full of years of hunger and suffering. So the body, that's the will to receive. Lightman, the body has the will to receive, has to reincarnate through 7 sefirot until it reaches Bina, and then it becomes similar to the Creator on the degree of Bina, in bestowing in order to bestow. Gilad, so what does it mean to reincarnate through 7 years of hunger and 7 years of satiation? Lightman, from Malchut to Bina, he discovers his will to receive and corrects it in order to bestow. Gilad, okay, and in the same article he continues and says that the soul at its root is braided, rolling between the evil incarnation and the good incarnation. The good intention, rather. Lightman, yes, so the will to receive, that's the magnitude of the vessel, and according to equivalence and identification with the desire to bestow, the will to bestow, that defines the measure, determines the measure of light that can clothe in it, and that's how the body just reincarnates from lack to fulfillment, from lack to fulfillment. Gilad, okay, so I see that what we're talking about really focuses on the life of the person. It's not something that Lightman, the spiritual life of the person. Yes. We're now talking about what's written in the preface to the Wisdom of Kabbalah, let's say, or in the study of the 10 sefirot. Gilad, excellent. This really puts this concept of reincarnation in a clear light. So let's continue in Akdama, the introduction to Panim Meirot Masbirot. He says that there are many sparks in the system of the Sitra Achra, so that they satisfy and sustain the bodies in the world until they reach the incarnation of the souls, until the end of correction for every generation. What does that mean? That the Sitra Achra was given during the time of reincarnation, it was given authority. Lightman, it means that we have corrupted will to receive, which helps us because then we have something to work on. And this is why the Creator says, I have created the evil inclination. As we are obligated to correct this evil inclination from evil to good, but the inclination itself remains. And so we reincarnate between these two forms, the good inclination and the bad inclination. That's the incarnation of souls. Lightman, Gilad, what is the Sitra Achra, the other side? Lightman, the form of the will to receive, which is opposite to God. That's why Sitra, side, and Achra, meaning other, the other side. Gilad, other than the Creator. And still the soul is given over to the Sitra Achra, to the other side. What does that mean? Lightman, the soul is intermittently in order to receive and in order to bestow. Alternating states. How can the light be in order to receive? So there are systems which deliberately hold the upper light in the intention to receive in order to present a place which is opposite from the Creator, in which the souls can find more clear discernment. Gilad, so in order to add coarseness, a place for work. Lightman, yes, you have to have discernments on both sides, one opposite the other. Gilad, another place this concept of reincarnation appears is the first article in Shamati. Every beginner student reads it at least once, knows it. He says that it's written in the books that sometimes a person is reincarnated as a pig, and this should be interpreted as one receiving the desire to receive livelihood and joy from things which he already decided are garbage. Lightman, yes, so it's not an actual hog, right? It's if a person wants to enjoy things which he already already said about those things that they are refuse, garbage, then he is called a pig. Lightman. So we can, in the writings of the Kabbalists, it's sometimes written that a person reincarnates as a dog or a pig. What does it mean? Lightman. It means that previously he determined that this state is the state of a dog or a pig, and now he himself is drawn to that state. Gilad, okay, that puts things in order. Can we continue? Lightman, you say there are many. Let's see. Gilad, perhaps not everything, but let's select a few choice ones. In the first letter of Baal HaSulam, he writes that each one is compelled to discover what he must discover, which he doesn't want to correct, but in the secret of reincarnation, everything will become clear. Or through the secret. Lightman. Yes, it means that we cannot see anything without an opposite form. When we talk about plus and minus, two opposite sides, then one teaches you about the other. And in that way we learn everything. And so it's impossible to do it without the sitra acha, without the hard work, as we call it. Leather tanning, it's called, because we cannot know holiness without knowing the opposite of holiness. Gilad, so these are stages a person has to go through in spirituality in order to form a connection with the Creator? Lightman, yes. Gilad, letter 19, also a widely studied one. He says that the end of the bi'ah, of the coupling, that refers to the coupling of the Creator and divinity from the above downwards. It has still not come into reincarnation in this world. So there is a soul, and then it incarnates in this world. What does it mean, reincarnations in this world also? Lightman, there are two meanings to this. It could be that the person is still physically, as we now feel ourselves to be, in this world. And then there are various forms that he goes through. It seems to us that we live, we do this and that, but it's all just our imagination. Our imagination makes us feel as though we are running around, flying around, doing things, but this is only imagination. This is why this world is called the imaginary world. And there are incarnations where we are in true spiritual degrees, and there in our spiritual vessels we examine and compare these degrees. Gilad, so the concept of this world, the term, doesn't apply to what we think we see here, right? Lightman, no, this world, that term has several meanings. Either what appears to a person who didn't yet start his spiritual work, or he's already in spiritual work, but he's at his end of correction, at the end of his correction, and then he takes the whole spiritual ladder, including this degree, the lowest, like in the story of Shimon from the market, and then he begins to elevate it, to raise it up. Gilad, okay, so 2-3 more. From letter 46, he says that here we can understand what's written by the Arizal, that the woman is the incarnation of Kai. Elisha, rather, is the incarnation of Kai. Elisha is the reincarnation of Kai. Lightman, Elisha being the reincarnation of Cain, I don't know what that means. I suppose these are two spiritual states which clothe on each other. We're not talking about people here, but a parzuf called Elisha and a parzuf called Cain. And supposedly they perform the same role. Gilad, the same role, meaning? Lightman, meaning the will to receive with a certain masach, with coarseness, with the coupling through striking, zivug daka. performing an act in order to bestow, which comes from both the state of Elisha and the state of Cain. They both reach the same act, but I suppose there is a difference between them because they have two different names. Gilad, so there's some continuation, right there, some continuum from state to state. Right, I don't think so. I think that in this case, the same act that the one performed, the other also performed. Gilad, so the same act, but we say that the coarseness always grows. Lightman, no, I'm saying that the same soul called Elisha and that same soul called Cain, each one of them performed the same action. And then it can be said that in that action they're both similar. Gilad, I hope I understand what you're saying. Lightman, even I don't understand it fully. Gilad, so let's put these things we read in the Torah in order. There's when it's mentioned that there's a reincarnation, we're not talking about history or anything like that, right? Or humanity. Lightman, no, the Torah doesn't speak about human beings, about people in this world. Even one word of it doesn't refer to them. It's the action of the soul. It's something the soul did. Avraham, Yitzhak, Yaakov, Pharaoh, Bilam, Balak, it doesn't matter who. There are no bodies. No bodies, only souls. You can say, wait. But were there such people, perhaps? Yes or no? People, yes, there existed such people with those names. But what we are talking about in the Torah is what was done in the spiritual world, using the same names. Gilad, so what each of us is supposed to discover. Lightman, yes. Gilad, okay, so perhaps the last quote from Baal HaSulam, because I don't want to be overly repetitive here. He says in the introduction to Pi Chacham that the correction is delayed from you because you require a further reincarnation. What does it mean that further reincarnation is required? Lightman, if he didn't do his job, then he must reincarnate, he must return and to fix it. Gilad, so we keep getting opportunities to connect together more, to discover the Creator between us and so on. And if we miss out on something, it means that it compels us to, we must discover it later. Lightman, of course, yes, you return and correct, you repeat it. It's like in school, if you did something wrong, you have to pass the test again or something of the sort. Gilad, so perhaps as we approach the end of the show, we can talk about another very mystical sounding term. It's said that at the end of correction, the dead will be resurrected. What does it mean? Lightman, dead means our egoistic will to receive, which we constantly put to death. Constantly, we don't want to use it. So the intention in order to receive is constantly dying, reducing, diminishing until we stop using it completely. And then that intention in order to receive, when it dies, then we begin to revive it. But now it is used as the left line of the Parzuf of holiness which we established. And then all those dead, those intentions to receive, they rise with their flaws and we resurrect them, give them life, and then we have a Parzuf composed of both the good inclination and the evil inclination. They both connect and both are fulfilled by the upper light and in adhesion with the Creator. And it's written that the light of the sun will be as the light of the moon, and the evil inclination will be as the good inclination, the darkness will shine as the light, and so on. Gilad, okay, so we really scrutinize the very wide term here. Can you summarize it in a few words? Lightman, to want to discover the soul and to correct the soul, and that is done only through love between us. Not to calculate, make calculations, I can do this or that. No, just come closer together until we embrace, until we all have one heart, and then all the reincarnations will be for the best. Good luck. Gilad, thank you, Rav Leitman. Thank you, viewers at home.